I didn't realize it at first. No one ever does. You don't wake up one day and decide you're living someone else's life. You just keep up. My calendar was full, not chaotic, organized, meetings spaced efficiently, tasks color coded, deadlines met without drama. People admired that. I did too for a while. The problem wasn't exhaustion, it was acceleration. Everything in my life moved quickly. Conversations, decisions, expectations, even rest felt scheduled. I remember the exact moment it hit me. I was walking through the city during my lunch break, phone in hand, answering emails while crossing the street. Someone brushed past me and said, "Slow down." Not angrily, automatically. I laughed it off. But the words stayed. That night, I couldn't fall asleep. Not because I was stressed, because my mind wouldn't decelerate. Thoughts moved like traffic that never reached a red light. I started noticing things, how uncomfortable silence made me, how I filled pauses with productivity, how being still felt inefficient. There was a woman I used to know, not recently, years ago. She used to tell me I moved like I was late for something invisible. I dismissed it. She wasn't wrong. Back then, I believed momentum was protection. If I kept moving, nothing could catch me. Not doubt, not regret, not grief. Now, sitting alone in my apartment, I felt it all waiting patiently. I opened an old notebook. No reason, just habit. Flipped through pages filled with goals that belonged to previous versions of me. None of them felt false. They just felt finished. I realized something unsettling. I didn't know how to choose a slower life. I only knew how to survive fast ones. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. Not anxious, alert, like someone who'd finally heard a noise they'd been ignoring for years. I canceled a meeting. Just one. No explanation. The world didn't end. I went for a walk without headphones. That felt rebellious. I noticed how loud my thoughts were, how much they demanded direction, how uncomfortable it felt to not be aiming somewhere. That's when it became clear. I wasn't afraid of slowing down. I was afraid of discovering who I'd be without urgency. And that was a question I'd avoided long enough. The second canceled meeting felt heavier. The first had felt like curiosity. The second felt like defiance. I didn't announce it. I just didn't go. Sat at my desk and watched the time pass without assigning it a purpose. That was harder than it should have been. People didn't react the way I expected. No one called. No one questioned me. The machine kept moving without me. That realization cut deeper than exhaustion ever had. I started noticing how often I rushed people, finished their sentences, pushed conversations toward outcomes. Efficiency, I'd always told myself. Now it looked more like impatience. One afternoon, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. I let it go to voicemail. That was new too. The message was short, open quote. "Hey, it's me. I don't know why I'm calling, but I felt like you'd answer." Close quote. Her voice landed softly, but it shifted something fundamental. We hadn't spoken in almost 4 years, not because of conflict, because of drift, which is harder to argue with. She'd been the one who moved slower, not lazy, intentional. She used to pause before responding. I used to rush past her silences. I called her back. My finger hovered over the screen longer than necessary. "Hey," I said when she answered. The word sounded unfamiliar in my own voice. We talked carefully, not cautiously, deliberately, like people walking through a space they didn't want to disturb. She asked how I'd been. I started to say busy, stopped. Fast, I said instead. She laughed, softly. I always wondered how long you could keep that up. That night, I didn't open my laptop, didn't plan tomorrow, didn't optimize anything. I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and let memories arrive without organizing them. I remembered moments I'd rushed through, conversations I'd shortened, choices I'd made quickly so I wouldn't have to sit with uncertainty. I realized something uncomfortable. Speed had given me control. Slowing down was taking it away. A few days later, we met. Not for dinner, for a walk. Her suggestion. She moved at an unhurried pace, didn't apologize for it, didn't explain. I struggled to match it. You don't have to keep up, she said, and for the first time, I believed someone when they said that. We didn't talk about the past directly, but it was everywhere, in what we avoided, in what we let linger. At one point, she stopped, looked at me. You know, she said, I didn't leave because you were wrong. I waited. I left because you never stayed long enough to notice when I was quiet. That stayed with me. Not accusatory, accurate. That night, lying in bed, I realized something else. Slowing down wasn't making me weaker. It was making me available. And availability was something I'd never learned. Nothing dramatic happened. No declarations, no sudden changes, no clean resolution, just space. I noticed how often my body reached for urgency even when none was required, how my breath shortened the moment silence appeared, how stillness felt like something I had to earn. The next week, I started saying no, not defensively, carefully. I declined an invitation that would have looked good on paper. I left a meeting early without apologizing. I turned my phone off for an entire evening. Each choice felt small. Together, they felt unfamiliar. She and I kept walking, sometimes together, sometimes apart. No expectations, no timelines. That was the point. One afternoon, we sat on a bench, watching people rush past. I felt the old pull, the need to be moving. She noticed. You're allowed to stay, she said. I didn't argue. I realized something then. My speed had never been about ambition. It had been about avoidance. If I kept moving, nothing could ask too much of me. Slowing down changed the questions. Instead of what's next, I had to answer what matters. At work, I shifted roles, not upward, sideways, less visible, more sustainable. The version of me from a year ago would have panicked. This version exhaled. One evening, she asked me something quietly. Do you miss who you used to be? I thought about it. No, I said. I miss who I didn't let myself become. She nodded, like she'd already known. We didn't define what we were doing. That used to terrify me. Now it felt honest. Some days I still sped up. Some habits don't disappear. They soften. But now, when I slowed down, I didn't feel like I was falling behind. I felt like I was arriving. I learned something important. A life doesn't have to move fast to be full. It just has to move at a pace you can stay present for. I wasn't living at the wrong speed. I was living at a speed that wasn't mine. Now it is.